everyone. This is Angelica. How are you today? Nice to see everyone. So today I'm going to start the first video of a series of videos that I'm going to do on the stages of a spiritual awakening. And this is very important for people that are going through a spiritual awakening because you want to know that what you're going through will end at some point and it will lead you somewhere that you need to be, rather than a continuous, painful experience like it oftentimes is. The spiritual awakening journey is oftentimes very difficult and painful. So if you know kind of the stages and what to expect and where you can kind of fit in to one of those stages, it kind of, helps you out some. Okay, so let's see. Today's video is going to be stage number 1. Now, I'm not going to be like anyone else because, I have seen some other stages and symptoms, but I really haven't that much, actually. I've just kind of glanced through seeing what other people are saying, because all I like to go on with any of my videos is my own personal experience. So most always I will try something and make sure it works for me, or I have gone through something and that will be, my experience in teaching you. So stage 1 I would like to call the undoing, because I can remember quite clearly when I first started going through the first stage, where things really started happening that were different than what had come prior. And oftentimes this can be spurred on by a catalyst of some sort. Maybe something big happens in your life. Maybe you meet someone that has great meaning to you. Maybe something tragic happens. Most of the time, from what I can tell, spiritual awakenings are often spurred on by things. It could be that you just had a traumatic childhood and that's what spurs it on. It could be a number of different things. Most oftentimes, though, there will be an event, a person, or something that will happen that will oftentimes push you onto this path. And I think the reason for that is that if you're comfortable and just kind of going along, with the regular everyday thing, you're not going to want to be pushed into, push yourself into suffering, because that's basically what you're doing when you're going through a spiritual awakening, is you're pushing yourself into suffering. Sounds like fun. Okay, so we're pushing ourselves into suffering, and so what often has to happen is, in order to take that road less traveled, or whatever you want to call it, the spiritual path, something may have to happen in your life that will direct you towards that, or push you into that. Because it's not so often that we just kind of choose it on our own if everything's going fine in our little 3D world. So that's that. So it starts off with a catalyst of some sort. Now, before my catalyst happened, which is when I met someone, is how my catalyst began, but I didn't even recognize that this person had any significance until over the years. So, but it's just from going back, I can tell from what happened to me from that time and onwards. So that's a complicated story. I'm not going to get into that right now, but I will say that before I had that catalytic experience, I did begin slowly going on the undoing, is what I'll call it, the undoing process. And the undoing stage is where you start to undo slowly the the patterning that has been placed upon you through childhood, through your genealogy, and through, just your heredity. So these are things that start peeling away off of you. Now, when you're born into this life and you have a spiritual, purpose, or you have a mission, you will oftentimes be born, into a situation that may be a little bit difficult to get through. And that's so that you will be spurred onto this path. So that's a whole nother topic. I'm not going to go there. But the undoing phase for me began before the catalyst hit. And that began as just being more interested in healing books, reading, just kind of wondering, about health, about, philosophy, about religion. So, I was still doing a whole bunch of other things that weren't, conducive to that, because I was living in the way that my parents had brought me up to live. And I was living in the way that I had known through being a child in the family I was born into. So over the years, through the spiritual awakening process, I have shed a lot of those patterns. And this has helped my actual family to stop those patterns from going further. So my children will not have these same patterns. Anyway, so the undoing phase has to do with you, first of all, being more interested in things of a different kind than what you're normally used to. Spiritual topics, health, angels, topics like these will interest you. You'll want to know more about how to heal others, how to heal yourself. You'll want to learn about all of these things. And let me just tell you that I started, trying to find books before I actually had the huge catalyst experience. Now that I think about it, probably about, I want to say a couple years before. So it had to have been around 2003 when I started wanting to, just getting that first book and reading it or whatever. And it's just such a slow process that in the beginning that it's so subtle, it's hard to pinpoint. But I can really pinpoint when it just started, my whole being was I've got to make these changes now. And I don't know where the information was coming from, but I still was living in my old life. Yet, all these things were wanting to undo from my being. I was trapped in this small world, this small third dimensional reality. And if something bigger was expanding out of me and wanting to, go out there and be something else. So I had a mission that I wasn't really aware of before that. So I started wanting to, first be healthy in a physical sense. Now, everybody in stage 1 will not be going through that, but what it seems like to me from my personal experience is I slowly wanted to start, exercising. I wanted to take the bad things out of my diet. I felt more love for others. Now, not all the time, just sometimes. So it didn't just permeate my everyday being. I would just have different thoughts, and the different thoughts were, maybe I should go and exercise today, or maybe I should take gluten out of my diet. So things like that. So small changes, but still the other old life was still I'd say 90%, 99% actually of my life. And then the 1%, I was like slowly trying to bring new things into my body and into my life. And so that's how I saw it, the undoing of the old self, emerging into the new spiritual self. That is the undoing. That is the first stage of a spiritual awakening, is that you notice these subtle changes. You're opening up your mind and your spirit and your being to these new thoughts and concepts that you had never thought of before. Now, what also comes along with that is a lot of pain, because you realize how I don't want to say just how much you have not been following a spiritual healthy path, and that could be painful, because you know, you don't want to see yourself as you know, really unhealthy or doing the wrong thing. But when you start to do new healthy things, you realize, wow, I was really off, you know. I was not but you don't know, so you can't blame yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. This is just an experience to bring you towards more self-love. So this is a self-love experience. So in the beginning, you're going to slowly be taking out the other things, but you'll have a lot of pain because you'll be feeling things again that don't fit, and they'll be coming out slowly. Now, time now has accelerated, so it could be that people are just going through this really fast. Now, I went through it a little slower. As my mind began to open slowly, I could handle it. I could handle it because I still had such a big part of my old life left. I was like, oh, wow, these new things. But then a couple years after that is when, boom, it really exploded. And that's when I had the extreme dark night of the soul, the intense pain, the intense sensitivity, which, by the way, I'm going to do a video on that tomorrow or the next day. I haven't forgotten. So, you know, the beginning first stage is just a kind of a slower, more subtle type thing. You kind of inch your way towards the huge, what they would call like Kundalini awakening. I experienced a really intense Kundalini awakening, and that is something that goes on forever in slow stages. But it will burn off everything that doesn't fit in your new spiritual self. It's like your higher self coming into your body, and you are acting and being that divine, beautiful being that you are. And all the other stuff burns away. So, stage one is the beginning of the undoing of the old and coming into the new. So, that is just my experience, and I'm sure other people have other experiences. And in the beginning stages, it didn't feel like I quite needed a spiritual counselor at that time. It's almost like a couple years into it is when it got really intense, and that's when I needed to get some kind of counseling or advice from somebody. And I did. I sought out a few different people during that time. Probably more than a few, actually, because it's really scary when everyone else around you isn't going through it, and you are. You really, really need to talk to someone. So if you are going through a later stage of the spiritual awakening process and you would like counseling, I do offer spiritual counseling sessions. So just go to my website, which is below this video, and click on services, and you can schedule an appointment with me. So I hope everybody is having a wonderful day, and I'm going to, tomorrow I'll do the video on the second stage of spiritual awakening, or I will do the sensitivity video. I might put that actually into one of the other videos, so I'll go ahead and figure out what I'm going to do with that. So, okay, everybody, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching, and subscribe to my channel and like this video if you like it. Okay, thank you. Bye.